Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. Today, I have on a very special guest, someone who I follow all the time on the internet, and I literally pause what I'm doing when I open up her newsletter, and is someone whose insights on CPG and the industry as a whole is always perfectly timed with research I'm doing for clients. So, Andrea Popova, you're so cool. I'm so happy you're on. She is also the CEO of CPGD. So, Andrea, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly, and I'm excited to be here to talk about CPG, my favorite thing. So,
Yes. And so, I would love to hear your career background and how you got into CPG, and then also how you became the CEO of CPGD.
I have just always loved consumer packaged goods. I love brands. I kind of love the psychology behind marketing something, the same product, but in different ways the most. I think that's my favorite part about it, or my entryway into it. But yeah, I started my career at Nielsen, which is a data analytics firm that works with some of the biggest brands of our time.
Yes.
Walmart was my big client at a certain point. Coca-Cola was my client, Procter and Gamble. So yeah, I worked with many different CPG and retail companies. And then I actually at the same time was starting my own beverage brand. It was a bubble tea cocktail pop-up. And
Cool.
that kind of popped off a little bit. I was making money from it. I was selling, at different happy hours at companies, but eventually realized I just did not want to be a founder of a CPG brand. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
And so I shut it down, but instead started writing about brands on the internet through a random Instagram account called Consumer Lab. And fast forward to a year later, someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, I saw you were a subscriber to CPGD. I'm actually looking for someone to run the company because I just bought it. Would you be interested in running it?" And so I took it over like almost 4 years ago. And since then, I've been running it.
Okay, what a message to receive as
I
far
know.
as, hey, I've been seeing your work. I know that you've been looking at this newsletter, and how about you become the CEO and run the whole damn show? How
Yeah,
cool is that? So, what was it before you took it over? And I would love to, if someone doesn't know yet, I'm sure everyone knows CPGD that listens
true.
to this podcast. But if someone is totally new, just happen to stumble upon this podcast, if you could give us a description of also what it is.
Yes. So the consumer packaged goods directory, much like the name says, it started as just a directory of brands. And the founder, David McGillivray, is a really talented designer. And so he made this beautiful website where he curated the best of the best. Back then, there was really no such thing, except I think it was even before think testing existed.
Wow.
So yeah. And so he started that. And then people just started, he created this email capture on the site. People just started subscribing through it, a couple thousand people organically, totally through word of mouth. And he was like, that's probably a good business opportunity for someone. I run a successful design agency. I don't need to do this. So he sold the business to someone else to make the most of it. And that person found me through my endeavors, through the subscriber list. And it was just so lucky for me that I was chosen for that. And that's how it all.
Wow.
But yeah, and since I took it over, it's become more than just a directory now. It's a monetized newsletter. We have an Instagram account, although I'm hiring someone to post more on it. We have an agency, we have an investor newsletter just for deal flow. So there's just so many different things have come out of it.
Your new deal flow investor arm of the brand has been so interesting to me because that's also a space I'm starting to learn more about. One, to become an angel investor myself, but also for clients who are thinking about and thinking, brainstorming of what that could look like for their business. Because I work with really early stage founders. And so I would love to hear how you are differentiating CPGD, because the CPG space in general is, yes, niche, but I feel like, especially the last 4 years, it really has exploded. So, as you're doing different endeavors with the brand, I would just love to hear how you're positioning it.
Yeah. Well, the investor newsletter just came from the fact that so many different brands were sending me the fact that they were raising. They were like, "Can you shout this out to the newsletter, the investors that you know?" And so we started this investor newsletter out of that, to be able to curate all those deals that we have access to for the investors who also subscribe to the newsletter. So that has about 500 subscribers, but we honestly haven't really marketed it at all. So I think almost at all. So I think over time that's definitely going to grow. What makes it different is just that we have this unparalleled access to deal flow that not a lot of people have. Some people certainly do, but yeah, we have 10,000 readers who read the newsletter every week who send us brands. And so we really have this unique access to deal flow that not a lot of people do.
And I love your ecosystem. As someone who is a brand strategist, I am always looking for platforms to be able to launch a brand or to get the word out about a brand. But the fact that your platform also lets the brand builder tag themselves as well, I think that's a really nice way of connecting the dots and showing the people behind the scenes. Like Frankly Good Coffee is now listed, and I'm listed, and also our photographer is listed. And I love that because it's rare that you have a platform that could also show the brand, but also who's behind it and who's helped build it.
Oh, I love that you called that out because that is another aspect of the business. You're right.
It is, and it's one that I personally appreciate, and also seeing all the different agencies, and I think it's
Yeah,
just a really great way to find awesome service providers as well, and seeing who's behind the brands.
totally. And we recently added a reviews functionality so that brands can review the agencies that they work with.
Ooh, I didn't know that,
Um,
okay.
Yeah, it's meant really to replace a lot of the effort that I was expending by people asking me what's a good agency that I should use for X, Y, and Z, and then I would have to sort through my network. But now I can just direct them to the website, so
That's
it's a helpful
brilliant.
tool for everyone.
That's brilliant. I would love to hear over the last 4 years as you took over the brand, what has been maybe the launch behind it or the strategy behind just growing that email list and why you're going into these different, verticals, in CPG. It sounds like a lot of it has been organic, but I would love to hear a little bit of the strategy too.
Yeah, my the underlying goal behind everything is just to create really good content. That's my goal. I know I don't always succeed, but my goal is just to yeah, land great content so that people want to read it and that's hopefully going to just lead to it growing organically as much as possible and people wanting to work with us organically too. I really struggle actually with the salesy aspect of a CEO role of having to ask people to subscribe or ask people to pay us for something getting sponsors for the newsletter. That's honestly personally hard for me. I would rather just do everything, for free and hope it's good enough to make millions organically, but I know that's not really how it works. So at the core, I really just try to make it a merit-based approach, but then I do go out and I try to find sponsors for the newsletter to make it all possible.
And I would always encourage people when you're about to do a sale or put yourself out there, reminding that you are making someone's life easier because you have such a great product that they're looking for a solution. And the fact that you're bringing it to them, you're going to save them time, energy, stress, and that you are making their life easier. And I'm sure whoever you're pitching is like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for letting me know this is available. Yes, let's do it."
That's helpful to hear. Yeah, I
I
do try to
mean
think
that.
that way. But it's like even if you have a really cool CPG product that you really believe in, let's say like one day there's a manufacturing issue and maybe only 20 customers, but 20 customers get like the wrong product. You feel bad and you feel terrible. You're like, I didn't do that right. So that happens also
Totally.
as well.
Totally. It's always that emotional roller coaster of being a CEO, a brand founder, a brand builder. It's like the highs are the highest and the lows are the lowest. And I think it also speaks to like finding what that balance is to help you come back from it. And so
Yeah.
I would love to hear, speaking of like highs and lows, is there any brands that you've been following or wrote about that you think are doing a really stellar job with their strategy or how they launched and getting the word out and get creating that buzz?
There are so many. It's
Please,
like
let's
an
nerd
endless
out.
uh I really There's so many I admire for different reasons. I think everyone has their own style. One that comes to mind is Elavi. It started as like a protein snack
They
brand. I
were
don't
on the
know.
podcast.
Oh,
Mhm.
really?
Yes.
Okay, I missed that one. That's great. Was it Michelle?
Yes,
Or
Michelle was
yeah.
on. Mhm. It
Yeah, I
was a great
just
one.
I think Michelle is the kind of founder who like it doesn't really even matter, I think, what the product was going to be. It's like she will run through walls to make something happen. And I've experienced that with
Yes.
her asking me for favors in like the most effective way, which I can only imagine like she's doing the same with buyers, with agencies, with anyone that she needs to work with. And so yeah, she's just a really effective founder, I think.
She's great. And also, I love the storytelling content. I believe she
Yeah,
was pitching a shark from Shark Tank who was at the gym at the same time she was, and she got content. And that really struck me. I'm like, wow, she's good. She's
that's classic
really,
Michelle.
really good. Any other brands come to mind?
Yeah, one that's that was I was thinking of that's maybe a little bit more the product is maybe more technical. It's Algae Cooking Club. It's like a sustainable
Yep.
placement for oil, I guess traditional like canola or vegetable oil. So it has a really high heat tolerance. I think that's how you describe it. And it's also much more sustainable than other types of oil. So, and I guess cheaper to manufacture and produce, so then cheaper for the consumer than say an avocado oil. So yeah,
Right.
I really like that brand.
Very innovative. Don't name names, but do you see any like big mistakes brands make when trying to launch or get in front of eyeballs or network that you're like, please don't do this?
Yeah, I think it's hindsight is always 2020,
Right.
but I think a big issue is brands spending money on the wrong things. So a lot of the times it comes down to maybe like a really expensive agency that they paid for branding that maybe didn't matter so early on in that brand's life. I maybe they could have waited for the next to raise the next round to pay that price. They could have started off with something scrappier, but
Right.
um, and also another one is focusing more on short-term growth versus long-term growth. And yeah, I think we all saw the Better Bagel story.
Yes, I need to catch up on that, but definitely
There
is a
was some
weird
fraud
story.
involved, potentially. A brand that really just scaled really quickly, raised a lot of money, but then recently some customers were coming out and saying that they were receiving products that really late or that they didn't order, and it was just bad.
Right. Right. I have to catch up, but I've been seeing the buzz around that and I'm like, "Ooh," especially when again, like you just said, raised so much money. I want to say or had
Almost
an
10
evaluation of
million.
like over a
Yeah.
100 million or something
Yeah.
wild like that for a gluten-free burger bun. Like I eat mostly gluten-free. I support gluten-free, but like that's a lot of money
I
for
know.
gluten-free, products, so or an evaluation, and so I think that's a really great point of as far as, like, being scrappy, don't try to go too fast too soon, build sustainably so that you don't run into issues like
Yeah.
that.
And I say
Okay.
that also as we are building an agency that hopes that some brands will want to spend money on humor-based marketing that we produce. And it's like, I know both sides of it, that it's really hard to invest in those kind of things as a brand, but also agencies are trying to do the most to also grow brands and still make money at the end of the day. So it's
Absolutely, so tell me more about the agency.
yeah, well, I grew up performing comedy and performing and writing, and my best friend is a comedian. And basically, what happened was we were talking about our career and everything, and that just sparked this idea for me that a lot of brands are actually looking for people to write funny content. That's a huge white space opportunity that they don't have access to that talent pool on a regular basis. And yet here I'm sitting in a living room with the funniest person I know who could write a crazy funny commercial in seconds. So I thought, let's connect the dots here. And so together we write and produce humor-based campaigns for brands. It's been a lot of fun.
So cool. Okay, so what's the name of that agency?
It's so we call so CPGD is a four-letter acronym. So we call our agency STFU.
Got it.
It's a silly one.
It's good. It's good though. And then are you doing live shows also in the city?
Yeah, it's kind of an extension of STFU. We do run some comedy shows, which we also do comedy shows as a service for a brand. So if a brand wanted to do a live activation for their customers, or let's
Oh,
say instead of a
cool.
founder dinner, like a industry event, you could do a comedy show made by us. Yeah, it's so one of them that we run on a monthly basis is called Ask a Fuckboy, and it's a lot of fun. And we have brand sponsor segments in the show.
I love that because I personally love comedy. My sister is a comedian.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I just come from a really funny family who like I always say most of my family members are either stand-up comedians or have done stand-up comedy and
Oh my
some
God.
point for where other families it's like lawyers, bankers, I'm like comedians. So I really appreciate
Oh, wow.
comedy and stand-up. It's I think one of the hardest things
Yeah.
ever to do. And I love how you are leaning into what you are personally passionate about and what you love to do, and then also bringing in CPG, where
Yeah.
I really have never seen that before, and I think that's really unique to you as well.
Yeah, it's been at first I was like, how are we going to connect the dots here? But actually it's been really seamless. For example, one of the segments in our show tomorrow is going to be sponsored by August Period Care. It's going to be called
Oh,
um,
cool.
I forget what it's called. Cramp Your Style, I think. Anyway, we're gonna have period care products and show the fuck boys the product and be like, what do you think this is for? It's gonna be very funny. And
Oh, that's
yeah.
gonna be good.
Where does your sister live, by the way? Is she New York?
LA.
Oh, because we want to do an LA show at some point.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna see she's coming to New York this week, so I'll love to connect you
connect the
guys.
dots.
That would be really, really cool. So tell me a little bit more. I know that you were saying it's in the early stages, but as far as a comedy based campaign or more of like that funny humor for a brand, what could that look like? Because I think that's
Wow.
relatively new niche, so to speak, as far as content for CPG to
Yeah.
purposely look for that. So could you give us a little bit of a breakdown of what that could look like?
I mean, brands have been trying to do this on their own for ages. Like I think off the top of my head, well, so maybe the more well-known one is Oatly. Oatly does this really well. They do a
They
lot of
do.
out of home campaigns, some social media videos that are really effective. They're just really funny. And I'm sure they do a lot of it internally, or maybe they have an agency. Graza is another one that has done some stunts. They had
Yep.
someone dress up in a Graza costume and put olive oil on bread for the pigeons on the street of New York. Yeah, so I think that it's been done. It's just that some brands want to do more of it. They don't have the time or they don't have the talent. And so we'll just be like a fractional marketing person to help support their vision or make a vision and then support their brand. So
So cool. And that was going to be my next question as far as what do you see as the maybe the year ahead, the future of CPG and also with your agency as well?
the future of CPG, I think, well, one good thing is that the economy seems to have stabilized. I really think that
Yes.
there's a more positive outlook ahead. So I could see CPG having an easier time raising this year. It won't look like maybe 2021, but it'll look
Right.
better than it has been the last year and a half. Um, and so that's good. I also think there's going to be a move towards less greenwashing, more truly healthy and clean products, whatever that means, because the goalpost continues to change.
True.
And and probably more marketing because people have more higher budgets. So I'm hoping that more for the humor agency because that's what I love doing. So
Absolutely. Is there any brand that you see really maybe on the trajectory of making it really big in the next year or any brands that you've been following that you're like, "Ooh, watch these brands. I feel like they're really up and coming."
well, I'm a little biased because I advise this brand, so I have a stake in the matter. But Buoy is this electrolyte supplement, and I don't know if I can say exact numbers, but basically they're just scaling super quickly and
Okay.
have super high growth. They're not super tiny, so I guess I can't say that they're like up and coming maybe per se, but they're going from medium to small to I think big in the next few years. Um, And another one that I've been seeing a lot of, I don't know their exact numbers, but Saz, the sauce company.
Yes.
Yeah, they're great.
They've definitely been on my radar. I believe that they just launched nationwide at Target.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's quite a rollout. They've been on my radar too. So I'll check out Bowie. I haven't heard of that brand yet, so I'll definitely check them out.
Yeah, they're
And
awesome.
yeah, they sound great. Is there any piece of advice you would share with maybe a founder in like the really early stages of being taking the wild ride of starting a food and beverage CPG brand, and they are out here trying to figure it out, and maybe they're in the really early days? Any advice you would share with them?
I would say one, it's supposed to be hard. Like if people are surprised by that or they say, is there something wrong with me as a founder? Why is it not going this so well or so easily? It's a hard job. So, and one that I have never actually fully walked on, so I can't even fully understand the depth of that, but it is a very difficult thing to do to launch a brand. So that's why I always, even if a brand, like even the Better Bagel situation, even in that case, I'm like, you know what? It's hard being a CPG founder. I can't
Right.
imagine. I can't judge it too hard, really. Um, Another thing is choose a good co-founder. That's, I guess that's kind of
Yes.
a given. There was another one that I was thinking of. Well, yeah, I would say lastly, don't raise unnecessarily or too soon. I think it's kind of a privileged thing to say though, because it's best to not raise at all, probably, for
Right.
just the long-term sustainability of your business and also you keeping as much equity as possible and all of those things. But if you're able to not raise as much or as soon, then you should try to do that. Try to not do that, I guess.
That's solid advice. How can people connect with you? Because you are doing so many cool things, and I'm sure founders listening are like, okay, I need to get in touch. I want to find my pathway to work with her. So, can you give us a breakdown of all those different avenues and also the newsletter and all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can go to cpgd.xyz to check us out. It stands for the Consumer Packaged Goods Directory. It's the same handle also on Instagram, cpgd.xyz, and you can just message us or DM us there. But also you can subscribe to our newsletter, which I send out every week through that website. And I always respond to emails that way as well if you want to message me. So yeah.
Awesome. And also the agency.
Well, yes, that is through the website as well. We don't have like a
Okay.
separate, it's a landing page on the website,
So we'll
but
find it
ask
there.
us, find us there, ask us for humor, and we will do it.
Love it. Thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours. I know I have to let you go, but truly one of my favorite newsletters, always on point with research I'm doing. And I just appreciate what you are doing for CPG brands and for founders and all the people involved. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so
Of
much for
course. Of course. Thank you everyone for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.